So, I mean, it's been a full moon this week, and I'm just looking up at that full moon thinking, this is amazing that my art is going to be there along with the Chinese, because I think that's a big race now to get landing modules on the moon and who's going to be there. So, pretty cool, huh?
I love Eastern philosophy, and he brings a lot of that into his kind of art mentorship. It's almost like there's a formula with art, and as long as you don't force it and you don't push it, it almost seems like everybody's got an artist inside of them. The uncertainty principle. Yeah, right.
The uncertainty principle, the observer changes the outcome.
That's it. Yeah.
We must, if we are the observer and we have that kind of power, it's back to beyond your wildest dreams, like what could you imagine and not even imagine that something could happen, but you just know it can. That's enough to get that ball rolling so that you are able to create solutions to this problem that we're having, which is global and not just over there.
Hello, everybody. It's Regan Archibald, and welcome to Unreasonable Health. And today you guys are in for a treat. I think many of you heard me talk about my love for art and how I believe that, the artistic side is one of the most important pieces of medicine. And one of my friends, someone who I've had the pleasure of working with, I've invited her onto the show because not only is she a phenomenally talented artist, but she's got a heart of gold and a big vision to make art more accessible. And she's going to show you some really interesting ways of looking at art and seeing art all around you in ways you probably never even realized. And so I want to introduce you all to Becky Robbins. And Becky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Regan. I'm so happy to talk to you. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And so, if you look at, for those of you who aren't watching this, if you're listening on the podcast, that's fine. But you can look behind you, Becky, and you've got all this art going on. And so you swim in art every single day. How does your brain work? How do you start identifying art in your day-to-day life?
Well, I think it starts way upstream from there because first of all, we're never not creating. We're creating with every thought that we have. Our brains are like a GPS, that if I type in your address, in Salt Lake City, Utah, my GPS is going to always take me there. They're so accurate these days. And I think our thought process is exactly the same. And so when I say going upstream, I mean, I never wanted to be an artist. It wasn't anything I ever thought of. I actually wanted to be a doctor. And then I downgraded that because I didn't feel like I had enough time. And I had a 1-year-old at the time. So I went into nurses training and became a nurse. So I love anatomy and biology, and all of that is magic to me because this system we live within is such a miracle. I feel like I'm standing inside a living miracle, every day. And so much about this miracle that I can't even understand some of the words that when you're describing something to me, you have such a grasp on this, and I don't even know how you do it. About creativity, though, since we're always creating, I manage what I expose myself to, which is a little harder these days, right? Because so much is going on in the world, and and I manage, like, I don't watch the news if I can help it. I don't watch horror movies, because I don't, and I'm even in my studio where I am right now, I consider this to be like a sacred space. And I don't, there are not a lot of people that come in my studio, and I don't listen to music when I paint because it can hijack me if it has lyrics, or, music touches such an emotional part of us that I'm careful what I listen to, or, sometimes I'll listen to historical fiction or something that's just like noise in the background because I'm not thinking when I'm painting. So I keep myself clear like that, so that when I have, it's like my art is more intuitive. It comes in that way.
So it's almost like if you clear your mind, then you can get downloads that can help you create something that's really powerful. And so when you see, are you getting these intuitive things? Do they come in shapes? How does it show up in your brain when you go to create a piece of art?
Well, I might have an idea about something. Someone will tell me a story, or I will read something, and then I'm curious. I think that's part of being a creator, is having an active sense of curiosity, which I know
Mm.
you do. I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
like looking at something. I have your book right here, by the way. I just
Oh no way.
sent this to a guy in India this morning because he said, "Do you know what biohacking is?" And I said, "This is biohacking. This is
Oh,
like the
thank
best
you. Yeah.
example of biohacking I know of." So we had a great conversation about that because he was curious. And I think curiosity is so important. And your question is, how did those images come in? So if I'm reading something or learning something, and it gives me an idea about anything really, and then go and find an image that might, or I'll think of an image that will support that. And sometimes it's from my own photography or a book I've seen. Sometimes it's someone who I know, this amazing guy in Amsterdam who is a great sketcher, and he has like these black and white sketches. And so I go to him and say, "Hey, would it be possible for you to give me permission to paint my version of your image into my art?" And you know what? That's turned out to be so much fun because I feel it's more collaborative. And I feel like I'm then shining the light on other people because I give everybody credit. So that's one way that I do
Yeah.
that. And
Okay.
then it just one at a time. My art is made up of lots of individual images that then start to tell a story. And then I connect them all with what I call my line work, because I believe that we are all connected to one another. In fact, I don't think you can see it because it's a little higher than my monitor, but I have a neon sign in my office that says we belong to one another, which
Oh
I also
wow.
believe. So yeah, it comes in fits and spurts and middle of the night, and ideas that I jot down. And like I feel like it's like a freeway that things are coming and going all the time. It's fun.
Well, and you're also, deeply connected into, states of higher consciousness, and you recognize that there's, just this energy field that, unites us all. And so I think art, one of the first conversations you and I had, I said, I'm not really an artist by means of, like, I don't draw things. I don't really have that side of it, but I do love to see the art of when I can put treatment protocols together for people and just see the magic that can happen. Whereas, like, I had no idea, like, because it's just like with you, sometimes intuitively, I'm like, you know what? I think for this client of mine that's got kidney failure, what if I use ARA 290, SS31, and then work on, an unrelated pathway, and all of a sudden I start seeing their GFR improve and other things improve. And so
Mhm.
I think in medicine, we've been so indoctrinated that it needs to be down just to the science and put inside of a little box. And if not, then you got lawyers breathing down your neck. And so what I've realized is that I think what the world needs more of is more art, more trusting in that deeper sense of connection and intuition. But what are some ways that you've fostered it over the years? If you didn't want to be an artist, and you're pretty soon, you've got a really cool thing where your art's literally going to be placed on the south node of the moon.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So how did you go from not being an artist to doing such big things with your work?
Well, first of all, I mean, that's an easy question and kind of a crazy question to answer, because after nursing, I got into business. I didn't stay with nursing for too long because the patient care side of it, I think I'm so empathic that it was really, and as a student nurse and a young nurse, they want to give you all the tough stuff to kind of weed out the weakness, of people. But I then went into business, and I was a creator of a global self-help company. And I think that taught me so much. I went from not knowing anything about that to creating this company, which took a number of years and learning along the way. And I feel like I love learning. I love learning about all different kinds of things. And so when I left that world, that self-help world,
Mhm.
and there's something else I want to say about that too, but when I left that, I went to a friend of mine who was an attorney who had to retire for a health reason. She didn't know you yet. I bet it could have helped her. But she said, I ran into her one day and I said, how are you? What are you doing? She goes, well, I'm taking Spanish lessons, piano lessons, gardening, art class. And she goes, you should come with me to something. And I said, I'll come with you to an art class. So that was really the start of it, because I'm not a trained artist. I never, I took a couple of local art classes in La Jolla at a little place there. And so, I learned how to draw a straight line. Do you want to know how to draw a straight line, Regan?
I'd love to know. Yes.
Some people think like, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. Okay. Well, you actually can, because in order to draw a straight line, which we did, you take your pen.
Yep.
You put a dot at the end on one side of the paper. You could even do this. And then you put a dot on the other side of the paper.
Yep.
And now you go back to that first dot. Take your pen or your pencil or something. And with your pen on the first dot, now only look at that second dot. Don't even look at your pen. Just look at that second dot and draw that line.
Not bad.
Right? It's kind of like hitting a baseball. If you watch the ball hit the bat, right? It's like eye-hand coordination. So our brain does that for us. So I started out learning how to draw a straight line. Wow. And then, there's so many analogies to that, right? And then the next lesson was, okay, so look out the window. We're going to draw that tree. I'm thinking, well, I can never draw a tree. I'm not an artist. They said, no, we're not going to draw the tree. We're going to draw the parts, just shapes that are not the tree. So draw what's not the tree, and you just keep drawing what's not. And all of a sudden you've got the tree, because it just kind of materializes. So that kind of magic was so fun for me. And it just stimulated me, because there's so many ways you can use art in life. And so here I am all these years later. And about the moon thing, I mean, how could you even imagine that? Like, I love the name of your podcast, because unreasonable is sort of what you have to be in life these days. Is like about like, what do you want? What would you want to do that is beyond your wildest dreams? Because I think if we know, like someone said to me, like about, do I want to sit in on a goal setting session? This was some women that I had met a while earlier, and they're going on a weekend. We went on a weekend together, and they said, we know someone who can do goal setting. And I said, I'll bow out of that, because I don't really believe in goal setting. Because if I believed in goal setting, I would have a specific goal in mind. But that's not all I want in life. I want something that's unreasonable, that's beyond my wild imagination. Because if I shoot for that, for sure, I'm going to get the goal, but I'm probably going to get way beyond that, beyond that. So I love having an unreasonable expectation like that, because then it leaves the universe can then fulfill anything I want it to fulfill, instead of me having limits. So I don't believe in limits. So back to the moon. I mean, I could not have even imagined that, but I was interviewed here in my studio by an Australian guy who was here for like a day, and it was like a 30-minute episode or an hour-long episode, and it was really fun. And he filmed me painting and filmed, all various things. We talked about art. And then I got a phone call about probably a year and a half ago by now, saying, hey, this has been picked up by a guy who's a physicist who created a time capsule, because he wanted to represent art in all different categories and different kinds of artists, so it would last into perpetuity, and take it to the moon, because there are lunar landing modules. There's some already have gone. There's 3 of them, actually, 3 different ones that are going to the moon. Mine is in the Polaris one, the Polaris landing module, because we are in this country preparing to put man on the moon again. So they're delivering equipment and stuff. So he just thought, let's put a time capsule in with it, and let's leave it on the moon. So, I mean, it's been a full moon this week, and I'm just looking up at that full moon thinking, this is amazing that my art is going to be there along with the Chinese, because I think that's a big race now to get landing modules on the moon, and who's going to be there. So pretty cool, huh?
Isn't that cool? I mean, it's in a time capsule. So who did you know that's going? So is it SpaceX that's taking it up, or what?
It's SpaceX, because other people have other rockets, and NASA has some. And so Elon Musk, the one and only Elon, got the bid on it and won the bid for a Viper rocket. So my art's going in a Viper rocket. I just think that is so cool. So I keep checking on when's it going to happen, so I can go and witness the launch and film the launch, because that'd be fun for the TV show that I'm creating to have that, be there in person when it goes up. I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
Man, that is
That's
so
pretty
cool.
unreasonable. That would be
That
an
is
unreasonable
incredible.
request.
That's unreasonable art right there. Hey, I want it on the moon.
I know, right?
That's so cool. So tell us about the show, because that's been a big project of yours. That it's not like 5 years ago you had a goal to have a series. I think you've already recorded a bunch of these, haven't you?
We have. Um, I'm happy to tell you about this because that's another thing that I never dreamed of. Like, I want to be a host of a TV show. And it actually came to me by asking myself, someone else posed this to me, which I think is such a great question, is to say, like, what do you, and take your time to answer it, like over a couple of days, but like, what is your passion? What do you really, really love? And what are your desires in life? And just sit with that and let that, because it's different. It's different when you just sit with it. And so one morning I was sitting, I meditate, and I do a heart math meditation every morning. If you don't know about heart math, it is so important.
Oh,
And I
nice.
do that every morning. It's my non-negotiable morning practice. And while I was sitting after that, you can drop into a really deep meditation after doing, maybe 15, 20 minutes of the heart math program. It's an app on my phone. And I was sitting there, and this idea came to me about a memory of a guy named James Lipton, who did a show called Inside the Actor Studio long, long ago, where he brought up on stage like De Niro and, various Spielberg and people that he would just sit there and interview at NYU. And I don't know how that thought came into my head. And it was like, you should do this, Becky, with artists of all genres of the arts. And the reason why is because we as a culture, I'm not sure if this is true in other cultures. I think maybe in some cultures it's a little bit different, but we here are so used to jumping in our beautiful car and driving it, or wearing something great that we love, or a dish, or this glass that was a glass blown by somebody we just use. We don't realize what it takes to get from nothing to actual fruition on something. It takes, there are so many hurdles that it takes to get right here, like the ceramic sitting behind you. Like, someone had to learn how to do that for trial and error. And we call it, my daughter had an acting class. She's an actor. And long ago, she was in an improv class. And the teacher of the class at Christmas time gave them an inscribed, like a Yeti cup that said, "Dare to suck." Like, you have to dare to suck because you're going to suck for a long time, at something. And one of the people we interviewed for the show, his name is Nathan East. He's probably the most recorded and respected bass player in the world, Nathan East, and his son, Noah East. And he was saying that Quincy Jones told him one time that if you want to learn to play the trumpet, you're going to sound horrible. He used a different word, for a year, before your lips, and your lips are going to hurt, and it's going to be terrible, and you're not going to make a good sound, at least a year. So that dare to suck thing is like, those are obstacles that you have to overcome it without any guarantee that it's ever going to turn into anything. Because in the arts, like, you can get a great gig, and then when the gig's over, you have to get another gig. Well, if you are an artist, you paint a painting and then it's done, and now what? You start another painting. Or how are you going to sell that? How are you going to get that in front of somebody's eyes who perceive it as being valuable? Or, I mean, there's so many, I can go on and on about that, but it's different than building a business where, as I know, since I built one, that business becomes valuable over time, and you could even sell that business and then create a whole new thing, or keep on doing it and stay making money for decades. But it's not the same in the arts. So it came to me to interview these people and just see what their journey has been. But most of all, to entice the public into, number one, an appreciation for it. And number two, like, being courageous and curious, and maybe it's something someone else always wished they could do. I mean, like this show, like, someone might get on this show and maybe someone in my world who says, like, oh my God, I've always been interested in anatomy and physiology, and I want to know more about what Regan is doing and how I can learn from him, that kind of a thing. So it's my dream. Well, I didn't know I had.
That is amazing. What is the series called, and where will it be available?
It's called The Art of Art.
Oh,
it's
cool.
like a verb and a noun. and we've got a sizzle reel that we are debuting this coming Saturday, and then the sizzle reel will go out representing 5 different episodes of 5 vastly different creators. Really fun, amazing stories that they've told me, and it's exciting and fun, and it's beautiful. It's like cinematography is gorgeous. It's not barely Becky on there, but it's just like maybe voiceover Becky, and like incredible stories with people. And I think it's going to be really fun. So where we end up, the pitch of it, is we'll see after this sizzle reel comes out, but I know it's that beyond my wildest dreams thing.
Wow, I love that. The art of art. And so these 5 creators that you've interviewed so far, what's been the most surprising thing that you've noticed?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, just the last week, we interviewed a woman who won the art prize. The art prize is given once a year to an outstanding emerging artist in this country. It's $100,000 prize so that they can then live off that money, so they can afford to live, to eat and pay their rent and that kind of a thing. And she lives in a home. I actually met her because I was touring the Crystal Bridges Museum, which is in Arkansas, and had the good fortune of having Alice Walton, who created that, who's the heir to the Walmart fortune. And that's her museum, Crystal Bridges, which is magnificent and beautiful piece of architecture. And she took us around, and we walked into a room, and there was this incredible art done by the woman that I interviewed last week. And so she said, "You've got to go and meet her." So I did last week, and she lives in Burbank. Her studio is right there out back of her house. And she has a horse in her backyard, an actual full-size horse. She's had this horse for like 20 years in her backyard, in like a stall, a little area in the backyard. She has like 4 rabbits, 10 cats, 5 dogs, all of this kind of stuff all around her. And she uses all those creatures in her art to figure out how to, when the horse is lying down, she takes pictures of how the horse is lying, and then she uses that to house an elephant lying. I mean, it was so shocking to go in her backyard. She goes, "Did you ever remember Mr. Ed? There was a show on television about this talking horse. That was the actual home where that horse lived, where they filmed a lot of that." So that was crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
That was funny. So I had dogs and cats around me the whole shoot, people like wanting to be, attention and wanting to be held and wanting to, all of that. It was great.
And so it sounds like she's got a very similar kind of theme that you've got, which is curiosity, always piecing things together and seeing how, things that may not seem related at the onset, art brings those things together.
Yeah.
So what is the art of art? I mean, how would you summarize it?
It's a show that is beautiful to watch, interesting and keeps your attention, that stimulates people, that entertains you, that might make you laugh, that definitely will get you on an emotional level to think like, wow, the stories that people have that, I don't love having the idea that we all have to go through so much strife in order to create, because I don't think that's necessary. However, I do know that an artist is a very sensitive person, someone who's more empathic than we feel things on a deep level. And so we're pretty sensitive to our environment and sensitive to other people and sensitive in a good way too. Like I'm walking down the street and I'll see a flower or a butterfly I just saw a few minutes ago, and it just stops me in my tracks. And it reminded me, I had a dream last night that this butterfly kept landing on my hand and coming back and forth. So the Art of Art show, I think, will entice people into their own creativity. And also, I do want to mention this, though, that there are so many artists that out there that know once we're including emerging people on the show, and also people who are very well known and famous in the culture. And some of the people that have been doing what they do for a while have realized the importance of helping other people in their community, and they relate to, like when artist is going back to detention facilities, because that detention facility he was in and helped him so much. And so, things like that, like really giving back to the community. So I think that, that we hear that all the time, giving back, but like really in a real way, like people doing something that really matters as their legacy.
Wow. That's so powerful. And then I could imagine the art of art will also help people realize that maybe we're all artists somewhere in us. And I think that was, I read Rick Rubin's book is probably one of the top 5 books. I've given more copies of that out to anybody. The Creative Act is what it's called.
Yeah,
And
love that book.
it's so good because, and I do, obviously, I love Eastern philosophy, and he brings a lot of that into his kind of art mentorship. But it's almost like there's a formula with art, and as long as you don't force it and you don't push it, it almost seems like everybody's got an artist inside of them.
Well, we were created, so we were created and we are able to create. And I believe that, especially, Reagan, where the world is right now, which is
Mhm.
devastating,
Oh man.
there will need to be solutions that haven't been thought of before. And there'll need to be a sense of solitude where you can then come up with some ideas that are outside of the norm of what hasn't worked. And all of that is what artists do all the time. I make mistakes. I'm careful because I work on a white background, but if I make a mistake, I have to live with it. And I think that I love Rick Rubin's book too, because I believe that he's been around creators for a long time, and he's seen what the upsides and downsides of it are. And I think we've never been in a time like this in our lifetimes. And I want to figure out how I can participate in the creative solution for this. And the best way is for me to stay in my lane, meaning stay in my own sense of solution oriented positivity. So if otherwise I'm contributing negative energy to an already negative situation. So if I'm going to be devastated and depressed and have angst all day, that first of all, I can't create out of that. And I think I wouldn't want to hang a piece of art in my home that is full of angst and devastation and misery.
True.
I don't think that adds value. I for sure wouldn't want it in a home that had children in it. So I think but my responsibility is to be, it's sort of like the Gandhi quote, be that which you seek, And also the other thing that he said is not allowing someone to walk through your mind with dirty feet, that whole thing.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that, but that is powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah, Albert Einstein, towards the end of his life, Gandhi became his hero. I just finished an autobiography on Albert Einstein. I was like, oh, I had no idea, because Einstein was very much pacifist, and then he, of course, he figured out the equation for the atomic bomb, and so his, the way that he got some resolution in his guilt-ridden soul was speaking up against some of the atrocities that were going on, and obviously they're going on right now in Israel. It's crazy.
It gives me shivers to think of that. Thank you. I'll read it. I will. I want to see which exact version of it that you read.
It's Walter Isaacson's.
Okay, perfect.
Albert Einstein, yeah.
And thank you.
Phenomenal, but Einstein, even as he's a physicist, right? And you think of him as a hardcore scientist, but he said imagination is so much more powerful than knowledge, because it encircles the world. Like you can't hold it back. And so I think what you're doing with art is so fascinating and powerful. So if you look at the art of art, and you're looking, 5 years, 10 years into the future, it seems like this is a project that might not ever end. I mean, it could far outlive you, Becky. I mean, it's really cool.
Well, with your help, I'll live longer.
Yes, we're good. I mean, we got another 100 years, but beyond that.
But yeah, thank you. Because, one of the things that I see for the show, I'm still in the aftermath of what we just talked about with Einstein and all of that. And I think that the timing of this episode is important, because I mean, he was a Jewish man, and he's like, oh my goodness, I think one of the things that I listened to yesterday is the importance of us not eradicating anyone. We were all born innocent babies and children, and out of that became, what's occurring right now. You're not born this way with this kind of hatred and
Mm-mm.
all of that. So I'm really excited to read the book about my longevity. I think
Yes.
maybe I mentioned this to you, that I was talking to someone who manages two big art museums here. And he was saying, Becky, what I think your next series could be art and biotech and art and
Oh, yeah.
technology, because like they're not necessarily, meeting in the middle. I mean, I live in San Diego with a big biotech community, and then San Francisco has a big tech community, but neither support the arts very much. And
Mhm.
I mean, my art going to the moon is an example of art and tech, right? So I love the idea that we could then, the next series of artists, that like we focus on that. I know a guy who's an amazing heart-lung transplant surgeon. I also know a physicist who's a nanophysicist, who was the guy who invented the very first microscope to take a picture of an atom. Imagine that. I mean, I don't even,
Oh,
that's crazy for me. And his paper on that appeared in a science magazine with the photo. And Gerhard Richter, who's a very famous artist, I think he's 90 or something by now, lived nearby this in Germany, nearby my friend who invented the microscope. His name is Franz Geibel. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's spelled Gseible. Anyway, Franz, he and Gerhard used this picture and created the whole wall in the Young Museum in San Francisco of these tiles using the photograph of that atom. And then later
wow.
realized he should have asked permission to the guy who originated that, but they all became friends over it, and all is well. But I sat down to talk with Franz about this one. I said, can I talk to you about spirituality for a few minutes? Because there's a blend there. And I said, I know about the Heisenberg principle, where they were using a splitter to split. I might have the facts wrong, but I have the moral of the story right. Like to
Yeah,
split an atom, and they couldn't replicate the experiment exactly ever. And they finally realized that the observer was
that's it.
changing the outcome.
The
So
uncertainty principle. Yeah,
the
right
certainty
there.
principle, the observer changes the outcome.
That's
So
it. Yeah.
if we are the observer and we have that kind of power, it's back to beyond your wildest dreams. Like, what could you imagine, and not even imagine that something could happen, but you just know it can. That's enough to get that ball rolling, so that you are able to create solutions to this problem that we're having, which is global and not just over there. But we
Yes.
need to realize that it's in every single one of us, and that we belong to one another. And so I feel like my art has a message. Each piece of my art has a different story attached to it. And when I'm not here anymore, I want my originals to be somewhere in the world that people can stand in front of them and see what they mean, because they all have something different, but it's from a higher purpose. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. That's a long answer to your short question, but
What was not, no, I love that because it creates context, right? I mean, art is a way that we can time travel essentially.
mm,
And it can put us into the future. It can help us have bigger aspirations for our life. It also can take us back to times of the past that we may be nostalgic for. And so I think it's really powerful. And so you've told me several times how you're using some AI applications in your art. I think Midjourney is one of the bots that you're using. But how are you bringing in some of the new AI technology into your artwork?
interesting about that, because I know a guy well. He's an amazing, brilliant, genius mind. His name is Alan D. Thompson, and he's got a paper he calls the Memo, that comes out a couple of times a month, where he lists all the newest, very latest to the minute information that's going on in the whole AI world. He knows everything about it. And so he encouraged me to try Midjourney in my art. And I didn't want to, because like, wait, you don't understand, how it comes through me and all of that. So, but I tried it. So we set up my computer and with Midjourney, and then I had my iPad sitting next to it, and I kept referring back to images I painted on some of my art, and then figuring out how do you write basically an adjective, like a story of what that is. Like, like
How do you prompt it?
which they call a prompt. So I
Yep.
was learning all the lingo, and I was learning all of that, and then he just said, okay, you're on your own. So start creating. So I did create a whole painting. Basically, I call it a painting of these images that I'd already painted. And then I just described them and push a button and see, like, 10 seconds later, what comes up on a computer is mind blowing. And,
Mm,
and I mean, this seriously was crazy for me. And also to know that that's one of one. Like I can't put that prompt back in there again and have that same thing come up for me.
right.
It's a completely different image then. So, I mean, I know there's controversy about it, but I feel like, and he said, like, Becky, you now own that IP for that because it's an original, one of a kind, and never to be created again. And I know there's controversy, but I'm just going with what I believe right now. So it was an interesting thing because it wasn't as emotionally rewarding to me in the beginning.
Yep.
And because I felt like, I mean, first of all, each one of these pieces that are sitting around me take like 9 months to a year to paint. So I'm really connected to them by the time I'm done. But this piece, so I had like, I don't know, 13 images or something. So then I placed them on a board like I have, had my printer come photograph, I took a picture of it. We created a whole board made out of these images that I then connected with actual paint, myself connected them all with all my connecting lines. And it's such a cool piece. He's showing it around the world, actually, in some of his keynote speeches, and he's showing it to governments and 500 surgeons and law enforcement and legal. And, so it's fun to see like what that was. So in the current piece I'm doing, there are like 3 images in there that I went on Midjourney to just like talk about what I wanted, talking to the computer about what my ideas were, and up came a couple, and I thought, I have to paint this. It is so beautiful that I
Wow.
just have to actually paint it onto my canvas. And so I've done that. So it's really fun. And what I believe about this is that it's all coming through me.
Yep.
It's coming through this channel that I of my ideas and my outrageous ideas, my unreasonable expectation, and it comes up on the computer screen, and it's fun to play with. And so I know that there's so much about AI that's amazing and so much that's not amazing. And I think that that's up to us as humans, to use our ingenuity and also our compassion to be willing to see what's right and what's not wrong about all of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because it's things that we're feeding into AI, which is what, is going to dictate the direction we take it. It's just a tool. And so I think it's going to be fascinating. One of my dreams for it is having an application where when people are learning, because I do a lot of courses for medical people on peptides, right? And I'm trying to help them understand the pathways. And there's a sequential set of pathways that if you learn those, then it becomes a lot more intuitive. And I've tried to get AI to draw the pathways, but it's still, they're inaccurate. And so I think we're going to have some AI that will have a lot more accuracy in biology. And I think it will really help kids understand better when they can say, okay, drop the mitochondria and the organelles of the cell. And now show me the DNA, the double helix, and what are all the letters on the DNA, and what are telomeres? I mean, I just think it's going to be such a fascinating way to learn. And then the AI can ask us back, okay, well, is this correct? Did I draw it correctly, or is there anything missing? And I think, I mean, I could just see that application in the next 5 years is just creating a non-intimidating way of really understanding biology and medicine. So I'm really excited about it. And for that, and there's 1,000 other reasons why it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't thought of that. I'm looking up something right now. I want to make sure I have the name of this doctor right. He's an emergency room physician, Dr. Harvey Castro. He's also an amazing guy who's an emergency room doctor, and he's created all kinds of ways. Like, for example, he was explaining to me, like, if you go out and someone's exhibiting like cardiac symptoms, and then an ambulance goes to their home, that with these things he's putting together with AI, that by the time they get him to the hospital, they've already diagnosed him. The emergency room is waiting with the right equipment and the right kind of doctor, and they're saving lives. He's got so many protocols he's already creating. that are amazing for learning and teaching. So I agree with you. The only thing that I think, and I'm sure it's being addressed, is that the information that's in the major learning language models it was like as of like 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not updated. And some
Mm-mm.
of um, the liberal people versus the conservative people, are arguing about, hold on, all these liberal people were the ones who created this model. Like we needs to
Right.
be, it needs to be a little bit different than that. So I look forward to it, seeing what happens, but it's happening so fast. There's no turning back with that. So
It is, and some of the new applications are now like closer to present time. So
good,
yeah,
good.
I'm super excited. Well, Becky, you're doing amazing things. I feel like there's something that we haven't talked about that you wanted to earlier. Maybe is the self-improvement business. You said you wanted to come back to
Oh
that. Is
yeah. Here's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about this about I've been asked to introduce an amazing man. His name is John Patrick Morgan, and he's going to be in Los Angeles next week. And I was thinking, actually, it was in my dreams last night, because I was thinking about all the things that are so amazing about him and why he's so different. And one of the things that I think is so incredible about him is he's had so many life experiences, that
mm,
he's had a band, and he's an amazing philosopher, and he's studied philosophy by going, like, a philosopher from Prague. He went to Prague to study that. He went to Greece to study different philosophers. He's got so many experiences. And I think that self-development also includes like creating opportunities for yourself to go out and do lots of different things and learn lots of different stuff. And I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to do that in my life. Like I learned to fly helicopters, and that was a really cool experience for me to do that. I didn't
wow.
keep on flying for a long time, but I learned, I figured out, I got the experience of doing that. That was fun. And I've scuba dived and skydived and, some of those scary things like that. But I'm a big diver now. I love diving, and then
Mm,
cultural things, going to different countries and being involved with different cultures. And one of the women, a woman that we're having on our show, that I'm talking to on Wednesday, is a djembe drummer, and she's like incredible djembe drummer. And she met her late husband, who unfortunately died a couple of years ago. He didn't know you yet, or he'd still be here.
yeah.
But anyway, he was from Guinea, and
Mm,
they have a daughter who's now 16, and she's been all over the world, because his method of teaching drumming was also to include all the the important things about the history and the rituals and why. And there's like drums for mourning, drums for like mourning as in grief, and there's
right.
drumming for different reasons, and what that all means. And it's not just beating a sound, a rhythm on something. So I'm eager to talk to her, because she's got a different view of the world that I've never had because of her experiences. So I think when we talk about personal development, it's not just like the goal setting kinds of things and things that we think of that are maybe not as important now, or maybe you've graduated from, or maybe you haven't done that yet. You should. But I feel like adding life experiences and cultural experiences to your life and your children's lives, I think, is really important things. I think it's made me a different person today. And I'm obviously, it's not done yet. I've got
Hey.
a lot of things I want to do, like watching that I'd like to watch the manned mission go up, now that I said that. Yeah, I'd like to see that go to Mars, and just things like that, or orchestras and going to concerts and imagining how in the world did they come up with that kind of a sound. Or
Mm,
one guy, Ed Sheeran, talking, in Wembley Stadium, and there's I don't know how many people that holds. What would that be like to be that
right.
way and see like 30,000 people? Or my friend Nathan East, same thing. He just got off a tour with Eric Clapton. Like what that must be like.
It's just
So
electrical.
yeah, wonderful. Thank you for asking that question. Makes me excited to do more.
Man, well, my feeling is you're just getting started. I mean, and this is it's really powerful, and so it's an honor to see you on your journey, and I appreciate the good work that you're doing for the planet and for putting out this great art, and super excited about your series that's coming up, The Art of Art. So, for people who want to get in touch with you or stay connected with your work, what's the best way for them to find you?
My website is beckyrobbins.com. My email is beckyrobbins1 at Gmail. I'm on Instagram as Everything Becky and Facebook as Becky Robbins. It's pretty easy to find me.
Awesome. Well, Becky, this has been phenomenal. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to our audience. And for those of you who get this before November, let's see, the 3rd, is that
The
Saturday?
4th, which is Saturday.
The 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can make it if you live in the La Jolla area. I guess you'll have a preview there of the show.
We
So,
will. Thanks,
awesome.
Regan.
My pleasure, Becky. And everybody, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you share this with your friends, family, loved ones. I think this will be a timeless show that you can share with anybody at any time, because art is not going away and it's just going to get better. So, Becky, thanks again for being on Unreasonable Health.
Thank you. Have a fun day.
Will do.